Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. But before we get into what this podcast has for you, allow me just take a minute to inform you that we really appreciate your support that you've been providing to this channel since we started it. And dear ladies and gentlemen, I want to remind you that we really appreciate your support. Your support is not taken for granted. Now, ladies and gentlemen, back to the analysis. Today, the South African EFF party leader, Julius Malema, reacted on the recently concluded elections in Uganda, where Museveni was declared the winner with over 70% of the votes, and he has called for regional and international bodies to recognize the election's results as illegitimate and unacceptable due to the unfairness and unlawful actions that they did during the time of elections, which includes switching off the internet in the country, deployment of police officers, and the shameful manual vote marking by the election officials, which was done in favor of Museveni to win the elections. Ladies and gentlemen, before we continue, allow me just make a humble request that if you are watching us for the first time and have not subscribed to this channel, kindly subscribe to the channel and activate the notification so that next time we publish a video like this, YouTube will automatically notify you. Like our videos and comment to show your support to our work in this channel. And to those who have already subscribed to this channel, we say thank you very much for your continued support to this channel, dear ladies and gentlemen.
The 2026 Ugandan general election was marked by a nationwide internet blackout, repression of civil society, violence against opposition supporters, and the suppression of independent media and communication. Just days before the vote, the Uganda Communications Commission ordered the shutdown of internet and mobile service in a brazen attempt to blind citizens to the democratic processes and undermine transparency at the crucial moment when information is needed. Reports from international human rights organizations confirm that these steps violated fundamental rights to access information and free expression, creating information vacuum that shields abuses, delays results, and erode public confidence in the integrity of the elections. We condemn the violence and intimidation directed against opposition figures, political activists, and voters, and the unaccountable use of security forces to silence dissent. The EFF stands in firm solidarity with the people of Uganda and calls on regional and international bodies to recognize these elections as illegitimate and unacceptable democratic norms.
Now, as we continue, dear ladies and gentlemen, allow me pass you this information before we get into the judicial act on the elections after the US order on General Muhoozi. Now, the news reaching right now is that the head of the National Unity Platform Election Management Committee, Harriet Chemtai, violently abducted from her home in Kapchorwa last night at around 11 p.m. According to the family, heavily armed men raided the home and ordered her to go with them. Ordinary people tried to put up resistance, but gunshots were fired to subdue them. She was driven towards Mbale to an unknown location. The Bobi Wine's NUP Party Secretary General David Tubogonya says the numbers of senior NUP leaders who are either missing or in detention keep rising.
Our president is alive, although not well, because he wouldn't want to be in hiding. If the criminal regime wasn't looking for him to kill him, And as you've all been seeing the tweets talking about all sorts of things they want to do to him. So he's alive and he sends greetings to the nation. He will be speaking to the nation very soon. Number two, to reiterate our position that we completely reject the results of the elections which were read by Mr. Byabakama. The National Unity Platform rejects 100% the results which were read by Byabakama. One, because they did not have basis. Up to now, Byabakama has not put out the DRA forms which he was relying on to declare things. Some people have been asking us, where is our evidence of the vote rigging? But we've been telling you people that when you are going to bring evidence, we want the Electoral Commission to say, this is what we based on to declare, because we have our DRA forms. Yes, we do not have all of them because in some places they arrested our polling agents, did all sorts of things, but I can say we have a substantial number of DRA forms which we can compare, and we challenge Byabakama to release those DRA forms which they used to declare the results they were declaring. You saw what was happening at the Tale Center. Without even showing where the results are coming from, they come and say, Museveni has 10,000 votes. And you ask them, where are you basing yourself to say this? And they were not able to give that clarification. Up to now, in complete violation of the law. We told the nation before elections that the Presidential Elections Act commands the Electoral Commission to base any declaration on DRA forms and tally sheets which are sent by the district returning officer, having copied in the political parties and candidates who are running in that election. That was not done. So up to now, the National Unity Platform, which believes 100% that it won the presidential election, is demanding for the DRA forms which Byabakama based himself on to declare General Museveni the winner of this election. And that is why we are saying we reject in totality whatever was being announced because it had no backing of DRA forms.
After the orders that the US gave to the General Muhoozi, the judiciary of Uganda has been pressured to do their work on the elections to ensure they harmonize it. Now, the judiciary has to do a lot so that they can harmonize the squabbles and the wars in the country Uganda. This is after their elections that took place in 15th January this year, which I believe you all know what took place or what transpired in that election. And by what you know is that the elections were rigged. And the victory of the opposition was taken, or I rather say, it was grabbed by power. So the Ugandan judiciary is trying to make their way after US making the move to sanction the Uganda because of the inhuman and misleading posts that General Muhoozi was making on his X page, and because of that warning, they have extended their hands to the judiciary so that the judiciary should do what they are supposed to do to ensure that both parties get satisfied in the elections, because they believe that if elections have taken place and one party is not getting satisfied with the results, now the judiciary has gained some ability to approach the election results that are still being rejected by the opposition party at a rate of 100%. And because of the continued conflicts that resulted from those unfair elections, the judiciary has to do their best in order to stop the noise and unnecessary wars going on in the country.
How is the judiciary prepared to be able to deal with what is no doubt a litany of issues to deal with in trying to harmonize election petitions, but also dealing with specific cases of violence at individual level?
Thank you. Good morning to our viewers out there. The judiciary plays a very important role in this country and the world at large. It has constitutional power, and when you look at the Constitution, Article 126, and the role of the judiciary being, clearly stated out there and onwards, it's basically supposed to be an arbiter in administration of justice to ensure that if there are any disputes, the parties having disputes, it steps in and settles these disputes. Now, over the years, of course, even when you look at the electoral laws, it has been clearly stated where the judiciary steps in and what they're supposed to do to ensure that people who run to courts seeking justice or challenging the outcomes of these elections, specifically talking about elections, are able to get justice or have their disputes resolved. Now, the question of how ready the judiciary is, of course, from what we've been seeing, we expect the judiciary to always be ready because that's their duty, that's the role of this institution. But the issue is the practicability of that readiness. How ready is the judiciary practically? And I think I can say this from, I would speak from what we've been seeing in the past and what is happening currently. What is the judiciary demonstrating out there? Look at some of the cases that have been handled. There are those scenarios, cases that are handled immediately. For example, issues of vote recount, where a candidate is not satisfied with the outcome, or that the mandatory recounts where someone gets less than 50, where there's a difference of less than 50 votes, and we've seen a few of them in this concluded election, where I think we've seen in Masaka, we've seen in Mubende, we've seen in several areas where candidates have applied for vote recount. Unfortunately, we are seeing the judicial officers at that level, the chief magistrates who are, given the role of voter recount, applying different, contradicting themselves. And that is a worry. It creates worry. And I don't know why the judiciary has failed to come up and prepare these people before, that if this is the principle we are following, this is the principle. I know judicial officers have independence, they're supposed to act based on the facts, but there's established law. So if you reach a situation, for example, what happened in Masaka, I see the same judicial officer today saying, I'll stop with the recount because I've noticed there are ballot boxes that have been tampered with. And the next day in another case, he's saying, okay, there are ballot boxes which have been tampered with. Nonetheless, I'll still continue with the recount. What does that demonstrate? What does that show? And for me, I think the judiciary is on trial here because if the people lose trust and confidence in what is being done by the judiciary, then we shall go back to what you're talking about, people looking for other ways of resolving their disputes, since the violence, and there the judiciary will have failed us.
So having this, we want to see the role of judiciary in election harmonization.
Like in the case the Vice President has talked about the recount, the law is very clear. Once the ballot boxes are tampered with, the recount is stopped. But here we saw a judicial officer reasoning, purporting to also, enrich jurisprudence, which powers the court, the Chief Magistrate Court doesn't have. So you can point to some of them being incompetent, with all due respect.
The officers themselves were doing their own things, but it was because it was an agreement that an officer who does that gets promotion. And in promotion, we have either promotion by use of money or promotion by use of job level. So you see, that is why they decided, those officers and the election officials decided to do whatever they did so that they could get to secure the win for Museveni. But after the review, the judiciary finds it illegal because the night of election, during the night of election, there were some ballot boxes that were identified as the ones that had already been counted, but because they knew those were the ballots that had most of Museveni's votes, they forced the recounting of the votes, not cancelling the previous votes, but adding the numbers of these votes to the ones they had already counted. The spokesperson of the judiciary in an interview had spoken about that issue, that if the other party has not been satisfied, meaning they term the election as unfair and injustice, they have to make a petition to the judiciary. And the other shocking thing they talked about was that the judicial officers are worried seeing those who are supposed to be protecting the law going against the law or breaking the laws. So because of the US, the judiciary is saying that it is their responsibility to ensure they use their powers to harmonize the elections, as they will stand to work with the laws and ensure the party that is complaining about the elections gets satisfied. What does that mean? They have to ensure that the party complaining about the elections gets to be satisfied in a manner that the votes that were stolen are brought back, and the victory, if the victory was not supposed to be Museveni's, then that victory must be directed to the person who was supposed to have it. And the US is strongly after this so that they ensure the other party gets satisfied. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've watched this podcast and you've not subscribed to the channel, kindly subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell, like our videos, comment and share. And to those who have already subscribed to this channel, we say thank you very much for your continued support to our work in this channel.